What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome back to the GOAT District live via the Player Profiler Network. Tonight, part 2 of our 2-part series, panning for fantasy and ADP gold with one of the best high-stakes players, one of the best analysts and content creators out there. You know him from this very channel. The Billy Muzio is back with us. And if you caught last week's part 1, you know how much knowledge and fire this man brings to the mic. And tonight's going to be no different. So grab yourself a cold one, sit back, and let's get.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We are back in the GOAT District for another huge show. Back to back, baby. We went part 1 last week. We looked at running backs. We looked at quarterbacks. And this week, we bring back the Grizzly, the big, bad Billy Muzio. I mean, he dropped so much knowledge last week. Make sure you guys go check out part 1. It was right here on the Player Profiler Network. And tonight we continue. We're going to hit up receivers and we're going to hit tight ends. We dive so deep, guys, that we had to chop this thing up into 2 parts. So make sure you go to that first one. If you're drafting anything right now, redraft, dynasty, best ball, you will for sure get some winning takes from that. For those of you guys joining us for the first time, we appreciate you guys checking out the GOAT District. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday night right here in the Player Profiler Network, 9 p.m. Eastern, live like tonight with my 2 GOATs and, of course, our awesome guests. And make sure you check out the GOAT District YouTube channel, guys. Go over there, subscribe to it. We got a lot of different stuff on there, live drafts. We draft high stake, best balls, and we bring in a bunch of guests. We got a lot of stuff on there. Dan and I do the owner's lounge behind the scenes of high stakes, managing teams. So check that out. Let's not waste any more time. I got my boy Dan. You can check him out at Overhyped Sleeper. No E on the end because he's too good for that. And we got Theo with a bit of color. Bit of fun on July 4th, I think. Happy July 4th to all of you out there. Theo, welcome as usual. Pumped to have you tonight. And Mr. Billy Muzio at FF Muzio. Dude, I love the beard. I love having you on. I'm pumped for tonight.
It's growing out pretty good. I keep debating if I want to trim it or not trim it. And I think I'm just going to lean into the Wizard/Viking look all the way through the season. So it's going to be somewhere in between Gandalf and somewhere in between Ragnar Lothbrok, and I think we'll be happy somewhere in the middle.
How you could always go for ZZ Top.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
He's getting there. Oh man, I forgot about those guys. I don't even think Theo knows ZZ Top. I think he's too young for that.
I like ZZ Top.
I know ZZ Top, the MTV guy. At the MTV.
That's the MTV guy. I love it. All right, guys. Like I said, we have a monster show tonight. We want to make sure we get at least these 2 positions into tonight's show so that we can give you guys a complete 4-position deep dive. Let's start with the receivers. Billy, I'm going to go to you. You guys all draft on Underdog. You draft on FFPC. There are differences when you're in the draft room, when you're looking at the ADPs, when you're looking at the draft boards. And one offense that is a good reflection of that is this Seattle aerial game, right? They bring in JSN, the rookie. They've got Metcalf over there. They've got Lockett. But for some reason, and Dan, I have a feeling you'll have a good take on this. You might agree with me. The Underdog guys are higher on JSN, and then you got the FFPC guys, who I think just like to win money, are on Lockett. So, Billy, what are your thoughts on this Seattle offense, especially the receivers out there, the Seahawks?
Well, I have a running bet with Theo here that I am convinced he's already lost. We put it up to a poll on Twitter, and it seems like the community agrees more with Theo. We had about 1,000 votes, and his side actually won the Twitter poll, which just reconfirms that my side is going to win.
Trust more people on Twitter.
But
Always fade Twitter.
Always fade Twitter. But the overall bet that Theo and I have is JSN wide receiver 36 or better. I have wide receiver 37 or worse. Theo, of course, has wide receiver 36 or better. And I'm just really liking my odds here because Seattle runs some of the most 12 personnel in the league. They saw 53% of it last year. If you look at just first downs alone, they ran the number one most 12 personnel in the league at 40%. And so that means that we're going to have an odd man out in the receiving core inside of this 12 personnel grouping. People might say, well, they drafted JSN. They might not run as much 12 personnel. Well, let's also remember they also drafted Zach Charbonnet. And so they are going to continue to run 12 personnel. It's what they've always ran. And so I think we're going to continue to see that. That being said, I think JSN is the odd man out. I do not think he's going to surpass Tyler Lockett in his rookie season. I do not think he is going to surpass DK Metcalf in his rookie season, which some user on Twitter pointed out that it would be possible that he would overtake both of them. And I want what that guy's smoking because that's some good stuff. But I don't think there's a scenario in the world where he outproduces both of them. I could see a scenario where he outproduces Lockett. I think it's unlikely, but I could see a scenario where it happens. Both not happening. No way to perform unless there's injuries to both of them. That being said, if I'm going to draft, I like DK Metcalf, but it's hard to ignore what Tyler Lockett has done over the course of the last couple seasons in comparison to in comparison to DK Metcalf. And if you were to actually compare the stats side by side. And so smart drafter once told me, I think it was Dan here, actually, is why draft DK Metcalf when you can just get Tyler Lockett? And I think that is a very viable question because he's outproduced them the last two seasons.
Can I say I've been looking at this situation a lot, and I'm an unapologetic Jackson Smith-Njigba truther. I think he's an absolute stud. I think a year from now we're going to be talking about taking JSN at like the 2-3 turn. That's how good I think he is. But I will say that I think maybe DK Metcalf is the guy getting overdrafted right now. I don't think there's any edge with DK Metcalf. And I talked about this with Andrew Schellenberg. Like DK is getting pulled up to like the I think it's just the fact that wide receiver is going off the board so much. And I think we have recency bias to the DK Metcalf smash game in the playoffs. But last year, DK Metcalf was 24th in points per game among all wide receivers. Okay, so he's 24th in points per game. He has some very notable big games. He's outscored by Tyler Lockett. And he was 24th on 90 receptions, which is his career high. The year before, he finishes 20th overall in points per game, and he had 12 touchdown catches. So, like, things have gone really, really well for DK, and he hasn't had that season that's like a unbelievable season. Last year, his ADP got pushed back, so he beat ADP. This year, like on Underdog, he's going 28th overall. So you talk about JSN versus Tyler Lockett. I think JSN and Tyler Lockett, where they're being drafted, are better values than DK. Who I think it's a teardrop between, like when T Higgins is drafted, I think there's a teardrop to DK Metcalf. I don't think he's close to T. would feel better about maybe waiting a little bit and taking another wide receiver instead of like this artificial DK Metcalf value. That's kind of how I'm reading this.
And it's not because he's going right beside Gibbs, right? Right, Theo?
No, but I think you make a good point, though. JD. It's like, especially on Underdog, like I have the Underdog ADP right in front of me right now. DK Metcalf is at 28 overall. Do you have a better edge with DK Metcalf or Mark Andrews right behind him?
Yeah.
You have Breece Hall right behind him. And then you have like Deebo Samuel, who's actually had a 20-point per game season very recently in 2021. And then you have Amari Cooper, who finished ahead of him last year. So it's like, I'm not advocating saying drafting those guys. I'm just saying that your edge I don't think you have a whole lot of edge right now with DK. I think he's been schemed up to maximum DK value. He's wide receiver 15 on Underdog, similar in FFPC. And I've drafted him on FFPC because wide receiver gets so steamed that you feel like it's a, you don't want to get jammed out, and he's still fine. But I do think he's getting a little bit overdrafted right now.
Yeah, I think. Well, first off, nobody puts Tyler Lockett in the corner. Okay, let's just get that out there right now. Not JSN, not nobody. At least not until 2024. I think this is going to be kind of a year to where JSN kind of learns the ropes as a pro. I do think he's an absolute smash talent. There's no doubt about it. He's probably going to force his way onto the field a little bit more than all of us hope. But, that's priced into Lockett's price. That's not priced into DK Metcalf's price. So, and I don't think that it's just, that, he's going to steal from Lockett only. I think he's probably going to steal from Metcalf. Scott Connor, I think it was saying a couple weeks ago that with Metcalf, he's a guy you want to sell in Dynasty because everybody kind of thinks of him as this big game-breaking hammer, but he's really not. He's really just kind of another, good quality wide receiver, but he's not like one of those people who can change leagues, change games, all that kind of stuff. But everybody feels like he has that potential. It just hasn't happened yet, whatever. I think at this point he is what he is. And, so I think JSN is definitely coming, but 2024 is more of the year than 2023.
Theo, you want to pay up now?
I certainly do not want to pay up. I certainly will not pay up now. I think that it's a very good bet, and I think that wide receiver 36, my bar is not so high that it's like an impossible one to cross. I feel good about it. I think talent wins out oftentimes in the NFL, and I think that there's a chance that sadly, guys miss time and things change. Offenses change. So I know that there's some very sharp people against me on this. I know Nelson Sousa is not high on Jackson Smith and Jigba. I know Dave Hubbard is not high at all on Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Billy Muzio is not high on Jackson Smith and Jigba. But I'm going against the grain here in the high stakes community, and I'm going to bet on the talent. And I think at the end of the day, Jackson Smith and Jigba is a guy that's commanded targets no matter where he's been. He was a can't miss recruit. He shows up at Ohio State. I realize it's college, Billy. You hate that college argument. I can tell. You're disgusted by it. But he did out-target Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, and we're drafting those guys pretty highly. I just think he's got that it factor. I think he's the kind of guy whose role is going to grow as the year moves along. And I'll say, JD, the reason that the best ball guys are betting on JSN over Tyler Lockett and the FFPC guys are not is in best ball, the rookies, there's a lot of data with the rookies scoring very well in the second half of the year. And a lot of the best ball bets are especially on Underdog, are backloaded towards the money weeks. So it's just a speculative bet that he's going to really be smashing at the right time. So that's pretty much what it is. All the rookies get steamed up on Underdog.
Shout out to the chat. You guys are, as usual, lit. I see Joe out there in 1912. Bunch of you guys. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Guys, I'm a little late with the boss today. We're a little delayed on the bus. We got into it. We got way too excited. I got totally sidetracked by Theo's sunburn. So
it's the tan, everyone. It's no peeling. It's peeling. It'll in 2 days. It's gonna look like sun-kissed sun. It's like a nice suntan. So you gotta take it to the limit, JD.
I like it. I like
Theo looks like he just crushed 4 Red Bulls and did a headstand and popped on the podcast.
It's gonna be all tan. It's Miami vibes in 2 days.
Either way, boys. Either way, we got to go to a quick word to our sponsors. We'll be back right after this, guys, with a bunch more goatness.
Hey, people always ask me, what's the World Series of Fantasy? What's the Super Bowl of Fantasy? And it's easy. It's the FFPC. Their signature Players Championship has a $6 million prize pool, and their best ball leagues start in February. And they're the answer to so many questions. Hey, what's the best place to get a Dynasty Orphan? Well, you can adopt a Dynasty Orphan at the FFPC right now. There's more orphans at the FFPC than anywhere else on the internet. That's why we partner with them. So if you want to play fantasy football for low, medium, high stakes, you love Dynasty, you love best ball, you love seasonal leagues, all types of fantasy footballers need to go to the FFPC. And remember, use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you $25 off your first team. Promo code Underworld, $25 off your first team, no matter what the format is, at the FFPC. Go get it.
All right, we're back. We're back with Billy Muzio, the high stakes machine, the bearded madman. He's just a draft board beast, and we brought him in tonight. We're looking at receivers. We're looking at tight ends. We talked about Debo. Theo, you brought up Debo. One interesting, and I'll go to Billy first as our guest. You look at the San Fran players, your team, all the skilled players going in the first 5 rounds in Underdog and first 6 rounds in FFPC. Ayuk is quite a bit cheaper than Theo's guy Debo. He had a poor showing last year.
I love Ayuk, JD.
I know you do. That's a little jab. But if you look at the two right now, Ayuk is way cheaper than Debo, right? So do you think, and Debo didn't have the greatest year last year, as we all know, especially after what he did prior to that. So do you think drafters are right now? How are you approaching these two receivers in 49ers land?
Is that to me first?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, buddy. I thought I said.
You're the guest. You get to go first.
You always get to go first. Come on.
So I was high on Debo in 2021. I was down on Debo last year. I'm back in on Debo in 2023. So we're going to take the every year approach. That being said, Brandon Ayuk had probably the quietest 1,000-yard season that we've seen in quite some time inside of the league. I do think, though, we have to look at the scenario and the circumstances that are being presented to us for the Niners team. We all know that there is quarterback controversy. We all know, or at least I know, and I'm convinced that Brock Purdy is the starter until he is not listed as a starter due to health. And so that being said, in the meantime, I do not expect them to push the ball down the field or throw deep or to really push Brock Purdy's elbow. So what is this going to mean? It's going to benefit Christian McCaffrey. It's going to benefit Deebo Samuel for screens and stuff behind the line of scrimmage. It's going to benefit George Kittle across the middle of the field and anything that's in the short and intermediate routes. So I think that Brandon Ayuk is still a wonderful receiver and poised for a good year. I think anyone in this Niners offense is going to have a good season this year. And I think that where he's being drafted is probably priced appropriately, and he has a chance to outbeat that ADP. That being said, I think the way that the offense is going to look in the first quarter to half of the year is going to favor Deebo Samuel a little bit more. And so I'm leaning towards Deebo Samuel. I like his ADP going in the middle of the fourth. You get him the late fourth if you're lucky. And so I think that I'll take the risk there with the rushing upside, with his home run ability, and them continuing to see the yards after the catch. So I am on Team Deebo again in 2023. Does not mean I do not like Brandon Ayuk. I just prefer Deebo Samuel.
Just realized I didn't take my AC off, so I apologize for the background. I'll try to edit that out for the podcast, boys. Theo, where are you at with this San Fran? I know you said you like Ayuk. You talked about Deebo. How are you approaching this offense?
I think Billy's spot on. I think like Deebo, where he's going is a value. He's dropped enough. Like last year, he was going too highly. This year, I think he's going about right. Brandon Ayuk, though, I feel like is a great value. Like you sometimes get Brandon Ayuk in the 7th round, despite the wide receiver enthusiasm and despite Brandon Ayuk, having a fantastic year last year. For whatever reason, he's just a little bit beat up. I think FFPC drafters are really high on Kittle, and Deebo has like a resistance point that he can never fall behind. Where Ayuk, I think sometimes you get him with great values. I think it's just a bet on the San Francisco offense right now. I think the San Francisco offense is going to be good. I think that it looks like we're going to get – Billy, you tell me what you think, but I think you're going to have the majority of the year with Brock Purdy, and I think Purdy's going to keep the offensive skill position players effectively scoring. So I'm okay. And I also think it's a consolidated offense. Like, JD, you always talk about consolidated offenses. Like, I think that they've shown that they can cohabitate, and you might have a couple of weeks with Kittle, Deebo, and Ayuk. You're going to have some weeks where maybe 2 of the 3 do well and one of them has a pedestrian game, but they have game-winning ability and they have the chance to put up smash games too. So I'm in on those guys. I think Debo's fine where he's going. Kittle's fine where he's going, and Ayuk is a really, really good value. I think if anything, Ayuk should just be going a little bit higher because I do think there's a chance he outscores Debo again. But I'll take the discount right now. Dan, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same place on Ayuk, and there's nothing better than a nice, tidy, narrow target tree. And that's what we've got in San Francisco for the most part. There'll still be some other players chip in a little bit here and there, but by and large, if the offense goes the way they want it to, it's going to flow through 4 guys, and that's what we want to see. And also, I mean, I don't like playing the injury-prone card or anything like that, but 3 of those 4 guys have shown a propensity for getting hurt in the past, and so I think that there's a good chance that sometimes it's going to be down to more like 3 branches on that passing tree. So I like Ayuk a lot just because I think he's the one who probably stands most to benefit since he's going last in ADP. But I'll certainly take shots on Debo as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to fade this offense, right? These guys are like Kittle specifically. You're talking tight end premiums. I mean, how else are you slaying the Kelsey team, the Mandrews team, by having a guy like Kittle there that can pop any week and win you that league? So it's hard to avoid these guys. I think, Billy, you nailed it. Just kind of that short game, especially coming off the injury with Purdy. So that's one way to approach it. But I think if you're too cautious with this offense, you might miss on some of these league potential winners that are part of it. We historically, Billy, we're going to you, Billy.
Is this to me?
That's for you, buddy. Historically, wide receiver 13 to 24. We've had league winners come out of this range. Right now, if you're looking in that range, who's a guy that you think is potential league winner, and who are you just fading?
There's a lot of names here. 13 to 24. League winning upside, Christian Watson. I think he fits this mold without looking it up, pulling it up right now. But I have Christian Watson as my wide receiver number 16. I just love the talent and I was wrong on him last year. I thought, small school kid coming in the NFL was going to underperform, and we saw that touchdown streak. That's just amazing. And so we have consolidated targets. Dan talks about consolidated targets. These targets are even more consolidated in Green Bay. And I think that the ceiling for Christian Watson is legitimately like wide receiver 8, 9, 10 range. And I would not be surprised if he did hit that mark. People I'm fading inside of this range, Calvin Ridley is probably number 1 for me. And it's not that I don't like the talent. He was an exceptional player when he was on the field every year. Missing a year and a half of football, coming into a new offense, with a new coach, with a new scheme. There's a lot of red flags that you have to be concerned about. Not just that, but it's not like he's the only guy now. Where before he was playing opposite of Julio Jones and was not taking on the number 1 defensive back. He was taking on the number 2. We saw a lot of double coverage go Julio's way, which opened up the field for Calvin Ridley. When Debo left and Calvin Ridley was the number 1, he was funneled because he was the only option inside of the offense. And so we saw it out of necessity rather than it actually being an evenly distributed target tree. Now he's in Jacksonville and he has Christian Kirk. He's got Evan Ingram. Zay Jones was no scrub last year. He also has Travis Etienne. They drafted Tank Bigsby, who comes out as a prolific pass catcher out of college. And so there's a lot of mouths to feed, as cliche as that sounds. It's very true with Jacksonville. And I'm just not certain that he's going to see the target share that he's going to need in order for him to be successful and return the value that people are drafting him at, nor do I think that he's going to be to the same level that he was prior to being suspended after missing that much football. So a lot of red flags for me with Calvin Ridley. I have my concerns. I've had to go to bat on this one, and I will continue to do so. It's not a player that I really will make beat me this year. Like there's players that I just say, I'm not drafting him. I'm going to make him beat me. I will own some shares just because I like the offense, but I'm not going to go out of my way and have, anything higher than 10, 15% ownership.
I almost started the question, Billy, with I haven't been shy with my dislike of Ridley at his ADP, but I want to give you the opportunity to throw it in there. I love that you nailed that, though, with Ridley, because I'm the same. I know Dan doesn't necessarily agree. He's a little higher, more bullish on Ridley, and I'm doing a couple drafts like a Koenig, and I've had that discussion because we love that offense, but then it's like, where do you go with that offense? Theo, I know you're big on Etienne. Where are you with the Kirk Ridley situation, and where are you in this range with these receivers? Who do you like or don't like?
Well, you said 13 through 24.
Yes.
JD?
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's one of the higher drafted guys, but I think it's T. Higgins. I had this conversation with Andrew earlier today, and to me, it's like T. Higgins. There's a drop after T. Higgins. I think it's a tier drop to DK Metcalf, and then Ridley's in that tier. Keenan Allen's in that tier. I think it's like T. Higgins to me. We saw 2 seasons ago he was 15 plus points per game, and he had about 110 targets in 14 games played. So we had that potential for him to have a 130 target season plus. I think that this year he gets there. I said on Sonic Truth the other day that Joe Burrow MVP. I think he's going to lead the league in touchdown passes. I think it's going to be a smash season where all Bengals beat MVP. And I think T. Higgins is like the one. Obviously, you have to use an early third on him. But I think when you get T. Higgins in like the early to mid third, it's an absolute smash value. And I think if you get jammed at wide receiver, then I think taking him at the 2-3 turn is perfectly acceptable. And I'll say I agree with Billy completely. We've talked for months now about how Calvin Ridley, I think, is going a little too high. Even if we're taking a big step forward with Jacksonville, we continually bring up Christian Kirk. Zay Jones is not disappearing. He's going to have some okay games, and you also have Evan Engram, and you also have an added running back to go along with ETN. You have Tank Bigsby, who's going to get some touches of some sort. So Jacksonville will score a lot of points, but I don't see Ridley returning value. He's getting drafted at the peak of his range of outcomes. And I'll say I think Amari Cooper.
You had to take my guy, Theo. I was just going to tell Dan not to take my guy.
It's a purgatory pick right now. Like, I think Amari Cooper is fine, but he's getting you basically have, and this is a whole nother conversation, but I was working on an article about this, about how there's kind of a wide receiver dead zone now because wide receivers getting pushed up so high because we're so hot on the wide receivers that are going in the first 2 rounds that they all get kind of pulled up. So I think that Amari Cooper is a prime example. Last year we were drafting Amari Cooper. Dan, those NFFC drafts in Vegas, I got Amari Cooper like wide receiver like 39 in that last draft of the year, and I was like not happy with it. He ends up keeping that team. He was such a good pick, but it was like I feel like this year they've added target competition. You have Elijah Moore, who by all accounts is going to get some targets. They drafted Cedric Wilson, and you also have Deshaun Watson, who is a very talented quarterback who's not going to have tunnel vision. And if he comes back strong, it's not going to be just, hey, where's Amari Cooper? He's going to pass the ball around. DPJ is there. I mean, there's multiple weapons there in Cleveland. So I think Amari Cooper is the kind of guy that if you're drafting him there and it's a structural reason, I get it. But he's not a guy that's going to smash. So I'd say Ridley and Cooper are both fades for me, and I would prefer a couple guys behind them just in terms of the value they offer.
Dan, I misunderstood. I'm loving the Amari Watson stacks. I don't know about you, man. I'm loving that Cleveland.
I don't mind those at all.
He was my pick. I love him in this range. I love stacking Cleveland. I think Watson and Amari just build on that rapport in year 2. Watson was a ghost last year. You saw he looked like a guy on the field that saw a ghost. Like, he just didn't look himself. As much as I don't like anything about that whole situation, you got to like him coming in year 2 with these guys. They've added Elijah Moore. They've added, Hunt is gone. But this offense is going to progress, Dan. I don't know how you feel about Cooper, and I don't know who else you have in this range that you like or don't like.
Yeah, so my fade we've already talked about. That's DK Metcalf. That's kind of the easiest fade for me. And I'm really on Christian Watson coming out of the back end of the this range. He's at wide receiver 21 in FFPC, and I just love the talent that I saw last year. I was like Billy. I was out on him last year. I just I did not want any part of him, and I was 100% wrong. And sometimes that's a dangerous thing when you admit you're wrong and you go kind of whole hog in the next year. But I don't know. I think where he's going at, he's not going to hurt you, and he definitely could end up being a top 12 wide receiver. As far as Calvin Ridley, I liked him a lot better when he was going in the 4th round than I do in the 3rd round. I mean, it's just he's gotten a little bit pricey where he's at now. So I've cooled on him, but I don't mind the shares I already have, and I'll probably add, here and there as well, just when he falls. So, if he falls to the end of the third, early fourth, I'll take a shot.
I would just like to note that no one mentioned Jackson Smith the Jigba in this range, so that leaves only 12 spots, Theo, that he can finish for your bet.
I had to
Wow. There we go.
Receiver 36. Josh Palmer land last year.
I like it. So, Theo, you've coined the term money zone for receivers in the 25 to 48 range. And I think, Dan, you coined this like the sniper zone, right? Because you pick your guy and you take him.
Yep.
Billy, I'm going to go to you first. Who's your guy in this range? Who's your scope set on to snipe in this range when you're drafting right now?
There's a lot of them, but I think my go-to is somebody I'm going to own way too much of, and that's going to be Treylon Burks. And it just breaks down to opportunity and simple math. And we look at the target distribution, there's not much distribution. It's going to be funneled through Treylon Burks. The other receivers inside of this receiver core include Chris Moore, Nick Westbrook-Akeen, Kyle Phillips, Chris Conley, Colton Dowell. Most people don't even know who the hell these guys are. It's not a NFL.
Really made up the last name.
Yeah,
that's a real name. There's Tracy McGrath, whatever you say his name. He's also there too as well. And so it's pretty clear and obvious to me. Treylon Burks is the clear number one. Chigo, the number two in the offense, but still he ran limited snaps last year. So if he's limited, we can expect this team to be pretty run heavy still. But when they are throwing the ball, we expect the game script to change this year. They're going to probably have less favorable game scripts for the running game and more for the passing game. So it's going to just set up more success for Treylon Burks. Downside is it is a bottom three pass attempt offense in the NFL. Still, though, 26% in the bottom three is still going to be 130 targets around the floor, in my opinion. And I have him at a 13.5 yard per reception, which is about what the algorithm kicked out for his one season. It gives him to just under 1,100 receiving yards and 5.9 touchdowns. And so I love his ADP, love his cost. It's climbing, continues to climb. I think it will continue to climb when everything's said and done. He'll probably be a 6th-round pick by the time that we get into tour season. But I am surprised to see his ADP still floating around in that round 7 range.
Yeah, JD, I appreciate the money zone shout out. It's true though, like the money zone has been extremely fruitful. There's I think it comes down to we get a little too confident about how we're valuing those guys in wide receiver 2 land, where there's oftentimes guys right behind them that offer the same upside. Last year, Devonta Smith came from this range, Tyler Lockett came from this range, Amari Cooper came from this range. There was multiple winners last year, and the year before was even better. I love Billy's call on Treylon Burks. That's just a classic. People don't want to draft the team, and also, he got injured when he was peaking. So if Treylon Burks didn't get injured, he'd be getting drafted a lot more highly. I think that's a great one. We've already touched on Brandon Ayuk. I think he's a great one in this range. Dan's touched on Tyler Lockett. He's in this range right now. But the guy that I think is kind of funny, we talked about Amari Cooper. We talked about Tyler Lockett last year. 2 guys who have had fantasy success that people let fall because they had all kinds of concerns about the quarterback, and we thought that these guys were just going to fall off of a cliff. Mike Evans is going too low right now. Like, we can talk about the concerns we have about Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay does have a consolidated target tree, and we have Mike Evans who played at he had some disappointing weeks. And obviously he had the smash game to end last season, but now you're talking about a guy last year who was going sometimes at the 1-2 turn in high stakes drafts. And now he's falling into like the mid 7th round. I think Mike Evans is the kind of guy that can really beat his ADP, but there's plenty of interesting players in this range. And I think it's a range where when you're planning your draft, you really want to hit from this wide receiver core, because I think there's a big drop off after it.
Dan, without stealing my guide, do you have anything to add to this list?
Yes. First off, I'd like to add that the name I did not hear from Theo was Jackson Smith and Jigba.
I'll say the
Man, he's feeling really good about that bet tonight.
And
No,
this is
I took JSN this week, but JSN now you're getting right now it's a great time to draft the rookies because Dan, they're all in the 8th round. But they've all converged. Addison, JSN, and Quentin Johnson are all like neck and neck. So I think as the summer steams on, they'll move up a little bit. So yeah, I'm on JSN there. I took him the other day.
I know that you're on him. I was just giving you crap for not mentioning him. So
Perfect
anyway.
Opportunity missed.
Yes.
Muzio is bullying me tonight, guys.
Yeah, pretty much. Out of players that haven't been mentioned yet, I like Jahan Dotson quite a bit in this range too. Because we've seen McLaurin and he just never really, he's kind of almost like DK Metcalf. He has good games, but he's never really put together a great season. I think he is who he is, and Jahan Dotson scored 7 touchdowns in very few looks last year. And you can look at that and say, well, yeah, that's going to regress, or you can look at that and say, well, this guy might just be a really good, around the end zone. This guy might be, just a really good receiver, and he's just scratching the surface. So, betting on a guy like that in year 2, those are the kind of bets I do like to make.
Oh, I like that one, Dan. Hot take. Jahan Dotson has a chance to outperform Terry McLaurin.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Agree. McLaurin's never cracked 15 points per game. And like Dan brings up, like Jahan Dotson, he's kind of a baller. And this is a lot of times the money zone is the wide receiver 2 in the offense, and it's been mispriced. So Jahan Dotson's exactly the kind of guy. He's right there with, Burks, those year 2 guys in a range you don't have to reach for him.
I'm high on both, man. I just stacked Howell, McLaurin, and Dotson from 7 to 9 in a super flex best ball. I mean, my QB3 with his top 2, the enemy coming to town. Come on, man, Washington. Let's go Commanders. All right, guys.
Real quick, Jahan Dotson is going as wide receiver 37 on average in drafts. That's 1 spot behind our bet, Theo, for wide receiver 36 for Jackson Smith and Jigba.
This is not an ADP bet, Billy. This is a finishing their bet.
Dan, I wish the people had not exiled the sound effects because I can crush the sound effects.
Yes.
By the way, if you guys are watching and you guys do like the sound effects, you want to bring them back, just let us know because we've had comments. People prefer not having them. They want more of the content, so we're bringing them the content. But I don't mind smashing that sound effect every once in a while. So if you like sound effects, let us know. The one name I'll add, it's not a popular take. I'm going to keep repeating it. I was on with Jack last night, Kavanaugh, on the player profiler today.
Yes.
And I'm going to Buffalo, guys. I'm loving Buffalo. I'm going the other way. The rush hour traffic's going this way. I'm going that way. Give me Gabe Davis. He went from 60 to 90-some targets after his first 2 years being in the same range. I mean, his stats are – you look at his his yak, he's one of the top in the league. That offense, I keep saying, it's going to evolve, guys. They're going to change. They're giving him more and more volume, and I don't see that progression changing going into next year. I think he's going to be a big part of it, him and James Cook. So I'm going to throw Gabe Davis to that. Guys, let's go deep. Let's go before we go to the tight end. Let's go in the deep end of the pool, guys. Let's go to the wide receiver 50 plus, like the Degen zone. Okay, this is where the Degens hang, and we'll go to our boy Billy first. Who do you like deep in the pool when you're looking at receiver, Billy?
Like, how deep are we going here?
50 plus.
As deep as you want.
50 plus.
Anything after 50.
Yeah.
Like, can I get down and dirty on this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And did the name rhyme with Marvin Jones?
Yeah. I mean, Marvin Jones is a good double tap when you can get Jameson Williams, but I've already given people that life hack. I'm gonna go a little deeper, and I'm gonna talk about let's talk about Paris Campbell. I like Campbell, and so I know that he has not had the healthiest career so far. 7 games his rookie year, 2 games his sophomore campaign, 6 games in 2021. Last year, he finally finished the season, 17 games played, 92 targets. That being said, we look at the rest of this offense, and we know that there is a need for the wide receiver position. It's kind of ugly, actually, if you look at this depth chart. It's Isaiah Hodgins, Paris Campbell, Sterling Shepard, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, Jamison Crowder, Jalen Hyatt. Of course, Darren Waller's the number one out of that group. But I think there's a real opportunity for Paris Campbell to step up and see another 90-plus targets in this offense potentially. I don't have him quite projected for that, but there is a scenario where it happens. I haven't projected for like 77. But, Sterling Shepard coming off injury, Wan'Dale Robinson coming off injury, Darius Slayton, a one-trick pony with the deep threat. Jalen Hyatt comes in, who's kind of that Darius Slayton replacement, in my opinion, and more of a 2024 play than he is a 2023 play. Jamison Crowder probably doesn't make the team. Isaiah Hodgins doesn't really play the same role as Paris Campbell. So I think there's a scenario where Campbell carves out a pretty large role, and we have to like his speed. I always go back and say 4.31 speed, 99th percentile. People say, well, yeah, that was his college metrics. But he was the fastest recorded player in the NFL last year at over 22 miles an hour. And I had made the Twitter joke and said that he was faster than an iguana because iguanas are fast as shit. If you haven't seen that, there's a stat on that. And so the fact that he was faster than iguana is amazing. I know the iguanas aren't in pads, but Paris Campbell is. The speed score, 98th percentile. Burst score, 97th percentile. Got to like the speed. Got to like how Dable gets creative with his players. We saw what he was able to do with Daniel Jones last year. Paris Campbell coming in. They went out and got him. They got Darren Waller. We're expecting them to utilize these players. I think we're going to see a transition of the shitty New York Giants receiving core into some more weapons, and I think Paris Campbell's part of that equation.
I like that one.
Theo, what about you?
Yeah, so I think that there's a couple of ways to play this. I think that if you're investing in a Christian Kirk or a Calvin Ridley, then Zay Jones is right now like wide receiver 64. So it's a slight handcuff, but there's contingent upside where you could be potentially starting two of them. Tyler Boyd is the exact same way. Tyler Boyd is going to finish higher than wide receiver 59, and I hope it doesn't happen, if Jamar Chase and T. Higgins go down, Tyler Boyd's usable. Both those guys are basically free. And then I think like for super, super deep, I think Rashid Shaheed is interesting because he really, really flashed last year. He has big play ability. If the Saints offense beats, Shaheed's interesting. And I think people are back on Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas can't stay on the field. It's just, maybe he comes back and plays a lot this year. But if he doesn't, Shaheed is very valuable in terms of formats where wide receiver really, really dries up. And I think taking some shots on Houston, drafting a guy on Houston is an interesting bet right now. I think there might be a little bit better than people think.
PJ Kennedy, I'll give you a bit of airtime. There you go. That's why I love these guys, because everyone, look with Dan, we saw Dan in one league. Somebody bought Davis for a third. I mean, give me Davis for a third all day. Anyways, I'm off my Davis rant.
Yes. All right. Give me a tandem, because this is something I like to do from time to time, is draft tandems from teams that I think the main characters may underperform a little bit. And that team for me is going to be Denver. So you can grab Marvin Mims and Tim Patrick, both. Marvin Mims is wide receiver 66, Tim Patrick wide receiver 80 in FFPC right now. I mean, it costs you basically nothing, and I think at least one of those guys is going to do pretty well. It may be that, Patrick starts out and then it kind of switches over and becomes Mims. But I don't know. Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, they've never really put together anything that makes me go, wow. And I would like to try to find somebody who can make me go, wow, in that offense.
Dan, when Dan's drafting a package, like a pair, you guys should pay attention. I've seen this for years.
Yeah.
He's usually really sharp with these ones. I'll say, I think it was 2021, Dan, you end up with all those Devin Singletary shares when he smashed to end the season because we were double tapping Bill's running back. Dan's pretty good at this stuff, guys. He's got receipts.
Yeah, especially when you can get the two late, Dan? Like those late stacks are the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely, because it costs you virtually nothing. I mean, at that point you're taking dart throws anyway. So why not take two dart throws that, at the odds of one of them hitting are even better.
That's all you want.
And to be clear, I prefer doing that more in the managed leagues than in the best ball leagues. In best ball leagues, I'm a little more likely to kind of split them up and take one here and one in a different league. But in the managed leagues, I definitely like putting those two together.
Some wise words from the overhyped sleeper. 5 names. I'm surprised none of you guys named any of these guys. I'm going to go quick. Romeo Dubs. You're already hearing that he's one of Love's favorite targets. He looked good before he got hurt. Rondell Moore with Hopkins gone. I know it's like trash man throwing the football, but they got to throw it somewhere, and he's probably number 2 in that offense. And then Thielen, if you're a contender or you're playing redraft late, he's going to get targets, I think, as the dependable vet out there with a rookie quarterback. And Van Jefferson in LA, there's nobody behind Cup. And then Billy, you mentioned Isaiah Hodgins has an opportunity. He gave us 2 top 7 weeks actually in his last 4 games last year in New York, and that receiving core is pretty cloudy, so opportunity knocks there. Guys, let's go to Dan's favorite position, the tight end position. Let's go to one of my favorite players of period in the NFL, and I'm sure one of Billy's. We're going to San Fran. We're talking George Kittle. Definitely a polarizing tight end. On one hand, you've got the consistency of a top elite tight end that he's given us. But then on the other hand, you've got, people pointing out that his injury from last year, his high TD rate as reasons to fade. Billy, is the juice worth the squeeze given the opportunity cost when you're taking George Kittle in drafts right now?
Yeah, I think you have to at least go for the juice, right? It's this offense in general, we just want pieces of. It's kind of like the Chiefs. You just want pieces of them. And when you look at the connection that he had with Brock Purdy, it was evident that he was one of his trusted targets and his favorite targets. And if we can see that again, it's just everyone, we were complaining for the last few years about getting Kittle the ball. For some reason, they just were not throwing him the ball as much as we wanted to. And when we saw Brock Purdy down that stretch, we saw week 15, we saw 5 targets, 2 touchdowns. Week 16 against Washington, we saw 8 targets, 2 touchdowns. Week 17, 8 targets, 1 touchdown. Week 18, 6 targets, 2 touchdowns. Now, the touchdown rate is unsustainable. That being said, if we continue to see the red zone opportunity, we know he's going to get the at least the targets in the red zone because he's just that big-bodied receiver, 6'4", 250 pounds. And so I think that we have to like the upside, especially if Purdy's at quarterback with the chemistry that they had. We know this offense is going to be electric. They're not going to be able to double cover anybody. They're going to have to be worried about Brandon Ayuk, be worried about Debo, be worried about Christian McCaffrey. It's really going to open up a lot of lanes inside the passing game, and I think that Kittle is going to take advantage of it.
I mean, I'd like to hand this one over to Dan because Dan really answered this so well when he was on First Class Fantasy with Billy and I. But I'll just say, JD, it's like he's average. He was finished as tight end 2 in points per game, tight end 4 in points per game, tight end 3 in points per game, tight end 1 in points per game, tight end 3 in points per game. When he's on the field, he's scoring. Right now, you get him in the 4th round. It's perfectly priced where it's not going to kill you if he disappoints. And if he smashes, it's great. So, Dan, go on your George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson rant.
Yeah, to me, Hawkinson definitely should be going after Kittle rather than in front of him because Kittle he smashes every year. And, you want somebody, you need a Travis Kelce beater, basically. And either you can do that by going super cheap at tight end and saying, you know what, I'm not going to get as many points, but I'm not going to put near as much resources into it. Or you could say, you know what, I'm gonna put the big resources in, but then you better hit. And Mark Andrews and Kittle are definitely the most likely ones to hit. I'm definitely, and Kittle is like a couple rounds cheaper than Mark Andrews, even in FFPC. So you just absolutely cannot beat the price. I agree with Billy. The touchdown rate is probably going to go down, but if his targets go up, his touchdowns might not go down that much. So I'm all over Kittle.
And our own Andrew Schellenberg is trying to steam up Mark Andrews' ADP even higher. It took him 17th overall in his first FFPC main event of the year. Ooh. So Andrew went Mark Andrews over wide receiver, which must have made him like uncomfortable as hell, but he did it. So
you going to take him in round 1? Well, you pussed out.
Yeah, I don't remember who he got in round 1, but his team's looking pretty good. But he went Mandrews.
Give me Mandrews even in round 2, baby. I love Mandrews this year, especially when I can stack him with Lamar. And Dan, I agree with you 100%. I think not only Hawkinson, but this next tight end I think should be going after Kittle. Billy, Kyle Pitts was disappointing last year in Fantasyland.
Pass.
Now you have all this other goodness coming in with Bijan. You still have Arthur Smith there. Is it straight up pass? Is there any hope for Pitts this year, or is this fool's gold again?
At cost, I'm passing. There's just so many other tight ends in this area that I prefer, like Waller, is a prime example. I mean, even give me Pat Freiermuth, honestly. It's just this offense, even if they're better than expected, which is a possibility, they still have Drake London. They went out and drafted Bijan Robinson. We're not expecting them to throw the ball 500 passing attempts. So it's actually the lowest expected pass rate inside the league, and the lowest in my projections as well. And so I am not sold on Kyle Pitts again. I have concerns. We know that they have misused him. They continue to put him out wide like an X receiver instead of in line where he's going to create mismatches. So that's one concern. Two, we know that they have Drake London, who's a target monster, probably going to see 27% of the targets. They still have Bijan. Everyone's telling me, like Theo here, that he's going to see 80, 90 targets. I don't think it's possible, but that's what they're saying. We also have Kyle Pitts, who's apparently now supposed to be a top 5 tight end as well. And bottom line is something has to give inside this offense. You're not going to have 3 players at their position, all as top tier inside one of the lowest passing volume offenses in the NFL. And so I think it's more likely that 2 of these players bust than all 3 succeed. And I think that Kyle Pitts is going to be one of those players. Now, there is a scenario, though, in which he just gets downfield and has, big chunk gains. He's going to have to rely on those big chunk gains in order for him to remain inside the top 5 at the position, because it's not going to come with the targets. And so I have doubts with him, and I am passing him at ADP.
Theo and Dan, make it a bit of a rapid fire answer if you can, just for time wise. But boys, appreciate that.
I'm neutral on him at ADP because we have seen a 110 target season out of him, and there's not a whole lot of tight ends we're talking about now that have gone over 100 targets. So I will say neutral, and I'll say the path to everybody smashing in Atlanta is consolidation. They can't have Cordero Patterson can't be a thing. Mac Collins needs to be invisible. But I think that there's a path. I certainly prefer Kittle right now, and I think right now if you prefer Kittle, Pitts goes ahead of him a lot. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Dan?
Yeah. I mean, Pitts is a huge talent. There's no doubt about it. And it always makes me nervous to bet against guys that have that much talent. But he has been completely misused in that offense. Doesn't look like anything is really going to change in that regard. So I'm going to fade him at cost.
I'll go to you first, Dan. Is there a tight end dead zone? And where is it, if there is?
Yeah, I kind of think it is, and I think it. I really think it starts with. It almost starts with Pitts. I think Waller should be going before Pitts, and I don't have Waller in my tight end dead zone. But then after you get into Pitts, Goddard, Ingram, Freiermuth, Njoku, Okonkwo, Kincaid. And these are guys you basically what you're doing is you're spending up at tight end, but you're not necessarily getting anything that's going to get you into the Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle range as far as fantasy points. So, you will if you can't match those guys, then you want to drop way down and just go a lot cheaper. So that for me, that's where the tight end dead zone is.
That's you're tight, Dan. Mine starts after Njoku. What about you, Billy?
I agree 100% with Dan. I mean, if I'm not getting Kelsey or Andrews even, honestly, you could argue that it starts at tight end 3 because there's a real chance that Gesicki would finish above, Dulcich. There's a real chance that David Njoku finishes ahead of Kyle Pitts. There's a real chance that Gerald Everett finishes ahead of Chigo or Tyler Higbee. And so I would much rather just push this position if I don't get Kelsey or Andrews.
Theo?
Historically, that's what the smart money does, JD. It's early or late with tight end. But I do think you need to be flexible this year because even in the dead zones, there's still some very appealing picks.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to be able to weed out what's real and what's not. But over the last 10 years, if you went with just drafting early or late, you're going to have better returns than trying to thread the needle, from tight end 6 to tight end, 20. But I'll still thread it once in a while.
Yeah,
I feel like I think you like double tap this dead zone. Like when you're on a best ball pick, it's like
yes,
it's like 9-10 turn. You have to take two of them.
exactly. Give me the Njoku Watson stacks all day. Come on, man. That Cleveland defense.
I like Freiermuth though. Freiermuth, where he's going, I think he's fallen enough.
But T and Joku, guys like that, I think they're going to be, in a best ball, it makes a little more sense. Trying to pick when Njoku's going to have a big game, with the other weapons around him, I think is going to be a little bit tougher. And that's a problem you run into with a lot of these guys. Goddard and Freiermuth, you can feel pretty good about starting, but the problem is they're just not getting you that same high level of points that you're getting from Kelsey, Andrews, Kittle. So that's kind of why I put the dead zone where I did.
And FFPC, though, when you take one, like FFPC is different because if you take Goddard or Freiermuth, you don't feel the need to draft as many tight ends. And that's an advantage when you're taking shots on these running backs in rounds 10 and on. But I'll say, like, you keep bringing up Njoku. Billy and Dan, what's the percentage chance Gerald Everett outscores David Njoku in fantasy points, FFPC scoring this year? It's quite close, right?
Yeah.
I'd honestly put it up near 50%.
And so you're saying good offense, tight end with a touchdown upside in a good offense, probably potential to get more targets than David Njoku. And Gerald Everett's tight end 19 and David Njoku's tight end like 9 or 10 right now. So that's the dead zone. You can find a similar bet and a similar archetype a little bit later.
If you're going to draft perennially disappointing tight ends, draft the cheaper one, please. That's Everett.
I think one thing you hit on, Dan, the format, I'm definitely more willing to hit these guys in best ball. If I'm having to fill in a lineup in like a redraft or like a fantasy pros or main event, I definitely want one of those top guys for sure. I don't want to have to think about it. And if I can get two, like in Dynasty, if I can have Kittle and Kelsey like I have on an FFPC dyno, I'm rocking those two all day. Guys, Kelsey Njoku went from tight end 24 to tight end 8 with Watson in town, and that relationship is just going to keep getting better. So I'm going to stand on my island with my boy Njoku, and I'm going to go back to Billy, the bearded beast. What's your best bet at ADP among all the rookie tight ends right now, Billy?
Only rookies, huh?
Only rookies.
At ADP.
We already know Theo's answer.
Yeah. At ADP? Oh, man.
The best value at ADP or the guy who's going to score the most fantasy points?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Best bet at ADP among all the
So overall,
you can have any of them.
Who do you prefer at price at their ADP right now with all the rookie tight ends?
Oh, man.
Is it Kincaid? Is it Laporta?
Hey, Theo, earmuffs real quick. Earmuffs.
It's okay, Billy. It's okay.
I'm coming around on Dalton Kincaid.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
It was Laporta, but Laporta's been climbing, and he continues to climb. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm almost priced out on Laporta, just because the offense isn't, it's not Buffalo Bills caliber offense. And then on top of it, he's going to need to capitalize on the first 6 weeks where we know rookies take time to develop. And then after that 6 weeks, now he's got Jameson Williams competition. And so we also have Jahmyr Gibbs competition. So there's a lot of, I should say, chances that Laporta doesn't return value at his current cost. Where he was going like right around NFL draft time, this answer was a smash Laporta. But it's changed since then. Where Dalton Kincaid has kind of remained constant, climbed a little bit, but not nearly as much as Laporta. So at cost, at ADP, with rookies, I'm going with Dalton Kincaid now.
Theo, before I give it to you, let's do a quick OTC because we haven't done one today. Billy, do you prefer on the clock Laporta or Juwan Johnson?
Laporta, because Foster Moreau is now cancer-free and back on the field, and he's Derek Carr's boy.
That's right. Dan, he's killing your Juwans.
Maybe. We'll see.
Theo.
Foster Moreau didn't really ever do much when Waller was out. And,
that's true. That's definitely true because I was waiting for him to. That's definitely true. He did.
Yeah. He was, everybody was like, oh, Waller's injury prone, just draft Foster Moreau, and never really worked out. So I'm not that concerned about him.
No, but Foster Moreau's like Dollar General. He's just going to steal enough bananas from the local grocery store to where it does enough damage.
That could be. So we'll see. Theo, who you got?
Laporta over Juwan Johnson. And I'll say for rookie tight ends, it's definitely Kincaid, especially because he was going ahead of Chig and Dulcich. and right there with Njoku. Now all three are kind of creeping ahead of him. So it's definitely Kincaid will score the most points. He's the value. But I will say Michael Mayer is 60 spots behind Laporta right now. And I think like the path for Mayer is like we saw with Moose rookie season, where his role grows as the season moves along, and he's a guy who can start for like the last 8 games of the season. I believe in the talent, and I think the situation is it's a more clear path than people are giving him credit to in Vegas.
I'm going to go with Luke Musgrave. He's the cheapest of the ones that are commonly drafted. I have a sneaky suspicion that Green Bay is going to run more 12 personnel this year than what they've run in the past, because it's they're going to try to break in Jordan Love a little bit more easily. So there's going to be a lot of they're going to be running a lot, and they're going to be running out. They're going to be passing out of sets that look like run sets. So I think that Musgrave's going to be on the field a lot. And I think he's a pretty good talent, and I think that Jordan Love is going to end up looking his way a lot because he'll be kind of a dump-off option.
Dan, we just got him for what? Sky Moore in the tight end prems in the money league?
Yes.
No.
Yep.
Yeah, 1912. Come on, man. Let me enjoy my vacations. I live in Canada for G's. I don't want to swear here, but forget it. I don't remember if we're allowed.
Billy dropped a Canada joke, JD.
Well, you want to hear my Canada joke?
Let's hear it.
Do you know how Canada was named? They had 3 Canadians sitting in a room. They said, everybody come up with letters on how to spell our country's name. And the first guy said CA. The next guy said NA. And the next guy said DA.
I like
Nice.
it. I like it. I like a little joke at the end. All right, guys. We've dived deep into the receiver position. We've gone deep into the tight end position. We got Billy out of the deep woods with that beard for 2 pods back to back. So make sure you guys go check out part 1. For sure, last week we hit up running backs and quarterbacks. And then this week, of course, receivers, tight ends. Billy, remind the peeps all your goodness. Of course, you're at FF Muzio on the Twitter machine. But maybe talk about what you guys have coming up on the player profiler. You guys are crushing. Of course, you've got the district on, but tell the peeps what else you have coming up.
Yeah, we just released the draft kit. Theo worked tirelessly on that project. It's out. It's rocking and rolling. We still have draft cheat sheets coming out this week. So that is a big one for us. Theo and I will be publishing those draft cheat sheets for FFPC format and for PPR and Titan Premium Superflex. So those should roll out by week's end. We also have First Class Fantasy on Friday this week. Skipping tomorrow, we got Hayden Winks coming on the show from Underdog, which will be nice. And then I am on vacation, and I'm gone next week. I got a 4-day golf tournament. I'm going to be heavily drinking from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m., and I do not want to record podcasts. So I am off for a week.
Nice. Guys, hit that like button, guys. Come on, listen to Nick. Theo, we got some monster gets coming up. We got Matt Kelly coming up next week, on a Wednesday night on this channel. And then we've got Jordan McNamara. You crushed it, like Billy said, with this draft kit. So promote that. Don't get into any code wars or any of that.
No code wars. You can use the code Theo or Billy, and it'll be $10 off the all-in package. Check out press coverage. I dropped first 2 episodes. I think the second episode's coming out on podcast version. I think possibly tomorrow. So we had Adam Levitan, we had Sigmund Bloom. It was good. And then First Class Fantasy with Billy, Sonic Truth, Matt. And then I'm in the Goat District here every Wednesday night. And make sure and subscribe to the Goat District because you get extra JD and Dan episodes. I'll say the Owner's Lounge. If you play Dynasty and you're not listening to the Owner's Lounge, you're really missing out because these guys have a ton of skin in the game and they win a lot of money every year. Dan Williamson does not pay entry fees because he just stacks credits from the year before all the money's.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it, man. You got a free roll, right, Dan? That's how it's done.
Right. Yeah. That's the idea for sure. And also tomorrow night, it looks very likely, since my internet seems to have held up tonight, that myself and Biplab Mandal are going to be doing a one of the I can't talk. My internet held up, but my brain did not. But anyway, we all know what that's like. But we're gonna be doing one of the best ball tourneys on the FFPC. So the $125 entry, $200,000 grand prize. So we're teaming up on a few of those, and we're doing one of them live tomorrow night. So
what time tomorrow?
Get that up on the Goat District. We are signed up for the 9:30 one, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. But if we have to move to a different time to get one that fills, we'll do that. So, but the plan is 9:30 Eastern.
Bip, a former Pros versus Joe's champion.
Yes.
And Dan Williamson and the GOAT District. We won it last year. Billy Muzio is going for it this year. Billy, who's in your division for Pros versus Joe's?
Oh, I got Sigmund Bloom, Evan Silva. There's a few people in there. I think Alex from Roster Watch is in there. Tarabassi's in there. Todd's in there. Yeah, there's a few people in there.
We got Danny Mueller in ours. Shout out to Danny Mueller. He's been on the GOAT District, one of the best players in the country. And then Curtis Patrick and Ryan McDowell are always
John Paulson.
John Paulson does well too. So it's but they gotta play us, guys.
Defending champs,
They
guys.
gotta play the GOAT District too. So they'll learn.
The title runs through the district.
That's right.
Exactly. Guys, you heard it. Go check out the GOAT District channel. You'll see Dan and Bip crush a 125. Unless I jump in, I might have to steal the win, but that's okay. Make sure you tune in for that. Make sure you tune in for the Owners Lounge. Make sure you find us on your favorite podcast platform. Guys, even if you watch us on here, you watch us on our channel, you watch us on the Player Profiler, download the podcast. It helps us out. It helps support us. Do the same for any show that you like to watch on YouTube, any of the Player Profiler shows. Just download them, man. That's all you got to do. Download. You can delete it after. It's all good. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We love that you guys tune in. We love the chat tonight. You guys were awesome as usual. Make sure you check everyone out at Overhyped Sleeper, no E on the end, at the OG Fantasy, at FF Muzio. I'm at JD Goat District, and we'll check you all later.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.